What's up, guys? Here with the Week 3 matchup reviews. To start here, I got my matchup here with Joseph. I won this one 147 to 103. Both of us were undefeated going into the week, and Thursday night started off pretty well for me. And got the victory, stay undefeated, keep my number one ranking. I had Patrick Mahomes with 25, Kamara had 27, Carlos Hyde 23, Devonta Adams had 15, Adam Thielen with 18, Emmanuel Sanders with 16, O.J. Howard had 10. Not much else going on in the lineup there. On the bench, I did have Ajayi out with an injury. Had Matt Ryan on the bench with 40. Had Mike Williams with 22. So if I would have played, those guys, I could have had even more points. So team's looking pretty good so far. If you look at Joseph's team, he had Aaron Rodgers with 20. Saquon Barkley had 20. Mike Evans had 23. Titans defense gave him 11. Did have Chris Carson on the bench with 19. Would have helped him out a little bit there. Chris Thompson only gave him 2. Keenan Allen only with 4. There's a couple duds there in the lineup. Next matchup we have is the closest matchup of the week, which was Garrett versus Phillip, the rivalry match. Garrett pulled out this victory. It was 123.7 to 122.4, so a 1.3 point victory. So we'll look at the lineups here and see if anything could have come out differently. We have Phillip had Deshaun Watson with 25. Odell Beckham had 15. Robert Woods with a big game, 29. Matt Breida had 13. Matt Prater had 14. Kenyon Drake only gave him 2. Latavius Murray, everybody thought he was going to be the workhorse, with Cookout. Only gave him basically 6. Not too much else going on there. If we look down at his bench, he did have Dalvin Cook out. He did have John Brown on the bench, who gave him 11 points. If he would have played Derrick Henry over Kenyon Drake, he would have got 3 points there and would have gave him the victory, or he could add John Brown in for Keelan Cole. That would have helped him out there. I could see the Derrick Henry playing him maybe. I don't know. He's playing Jacksonville, so that's a tough call there. Definitely would have went with Keelan Cole over John Brown, so you never know. Looking at Garrett's lineup here, he's got Big Ben with 24, Kareem Hunt with 16, Jarvis Landry had 16, Golden Tate with 10, Kelsey had 15, Gio Bernard had 17, filling in for Joe Mixon. Had 15 out of Wilson on the bench, so he played the right quarterback there. Kerryon Johnson with 12 on the bench, C.J. Anderson with 10, Paul Richardson with 11. So I had some decent bench production, could have got maybe a few more points here or there, but nothing crazy. Was able to get the win, as we know. So right now, I believe me and Garrett are the only undefeated teams in the league. So as you guys can predict, we will be 1-2 in the polls, and we were 1-2 last week. So it will remain that way for the time being. The next matchup I have here is I have Chad versus Josh. Josh suffered his first loss of the season, and it wasn't even close. Chad beat the shit out of him, 130 to 86. Looking at Chad's team, he had Matt Stafford with 18, Ezekiel Elliott with 13, Coleman had 12, Michael Thomas has been killing it this year, had 18, Marvin Jones with 15. We didn't even know if he was going to play. George Kittle with 12, Javoris Allen with 16, Bears defense with 15. Had Calvin Ridley on the bench, who had 37. Had a huge day with 3 touchdowns. Helped me win some money on DraftKings, so I appreciate that. Really, the only dud in his lineup was Stephon Diggs, who had basically 4 points. Everything else, solid production across the board. Looking at Josh's team, he had 14 out of Dalton and Johnson, 15 out of Howard, 13 out of Cooks, 13 out of James White. Did have Phillip Rivers on the bench with 17, so he could have got 3 more points there, but it wouldn't have made a big deal there. Amari Cooper with only 3 points. Will Disley with 1 point. I mean, those are a couple duds in the lineup there. I mean, Deshaun Jackson had 5, but, like I've said before, Deshaun Jackson's a boomer bust player, man. he doesn't get that big touchdown, to me, he's not really going to be able to produce. So we saw first couple weeks he got those big touchdowns. Last night, not so much, and obviously his scoring reflects that. Next up, we have had a battle of two winless teams between Orlando and Steven. Steven made sure he got a win here. It was 130 to 89. Obviously, I've discussed before, Orlando's having problems with injuries, players not wanting to play, guys who have been suspended. I'm not really sure he went about it the smartest way, picking two guys who were suspended. He's going to be 0-3, probably 0-4 after this week. I believe he plays Garrett. It's going to be hard to come back from that, but if these guys come back from injury, if maybe Le'Veon Bell reports or gets traded, maybe his team could just go on a huge winning streak. You never know, but we'll see how that goes. But looking at his team, we have Alex Smith with 17, Marshawn with 16, Funchess had 15, Brown's defense got him 11, Vinatieri with 10. Like I said, his whole bench, Bell is not reporting, Mixon injured, and he's got Ingram and Edelman. Duds in his lineup, Fitzgerald 2 points, maybe Aguilar with 4. A lot of guys. I don't expect a lot out of Eckler. He did have 6.5. It's not too bad for him. I don't expect nothing out of Robbie Anderson, Eric Ebron. I guess he had the full-time tight end role, so some people expected something out of him. I didn't expect much. Looking here at Steven's team, Cam Newton with 30, Alex Collins 15, TJ Yeldon 12, Kupp 15, Geronimo Allison with 15, Kenny Stills with 14, Zach Ertz with 10. Did have Tyler Boyd on the bench, who had a big day with 23. He's dealing with injuries as well. He's got Leonard Fournette out. He has Devonta Freeman out, Josh Gordon out. So, once he can get those guys healthy, that's part of the reason probably both of these guys are struggling with their team so far, is, dealing with some of these injuries here. Now we move on to the other matchup of the winless teams. So we had Dalton versus Brian. Dalton won this one pretty easily, won 139 to 108. Dalton had Breeze with a huge day, 41. Melvin Gordon had 15. Peterson with a big day, 24. Julio with 12. Kenny Galladay had 14, and he got 12 out of the kicker. Had Royce Freeman on the bench, who gave him 12.3. Carson Wentz, he's got him back. So we'll see if he has a little bit of quarterback decision to make, even though Breeze has been playing well. He has Evan Ingram, who suffered an injury. He's going to be out 4 to 6 weeks, I want to say is what they said. So he'll have to be finding another tight end. So he'll sure be putting in a claim tomorrow. Had Pierre Garçon, only got 1.5 points, a couple sore spots in the lineup. If we look at Brian's team, Gurley had 22, Sammy Watkins had 16, Sterling Shepard had 17, Isaiah Crowell with 18 in that Thursday night game. Had Eli on the bench, who had 20, Jameson Crowder with 12.5. Duds, Tom Brady only giving you 7.5. You expect more there. T.Y. Hilton with only 7.5. You probably expect a little bit more there. Same with Gronk with 7. Patriots defense gave him a goose egg. So it's a tough day for Brian, and he plays me next week. So just like Orlando, they're probably going to continue to be winless as they face the number 1 and number 2 team currently. Next up, I got Dakota versus Derek. I know this matchup was decided on last night because half of Derek's team was playing last night pretty much. He came back and won this pretty easily, 131 to 104. We look at Dakota's team first. Cousins had 10, McCaffrey with 20, Hopkins had 11, Marquise Goodwin had 10, Will Lutz with 15, Tyler Lockett on the bench with 16. Maybe a dud out of Tyreek Hill with just 6. Everything else is pretty accurate. Obviously you expect Kirk Cousins to do better than 10 against Buffalo, but it's kind of a crazy game there. We look here at Derek's team. Ryan Fitzpatrick, Fitzmagic, putting up 25. Lamar Miller with 11. Antonio Brown had 14. Smith-Schuster with 16. Godwin with 14. Kyle Rudolph, 13. Will Fuller with 19. Rams defense with 13. Got nothing out of his kicker, but everything else looked pretty good for him. Did have Jared Goff on the bench with 25, Alfred Morris with 12, and looks like Ted Ginn had 11 there for him. And so that, I believe that covers all the matchups. Double check. Yep, that is all the matchups. So I'll have updated rankings posted when as you guys watch this video. Obviously, waivers processed tomorrow, so get your initial waiver claims in. I know some trade proposals have been getting shot around. Nothing has been accepted yet, so obviously we got this week to go. We'll see if anybody can get anything figured out there. Next week, I will probably cover kind of, we're at the quarter point of the season after week 4. So I will kind of cover how the preseason rankings are looking as far as how the teams are performing and things like that. I know I got a lot of shit for ranking myself number 1, but right now I'm still undefeated. So I didn't want to rank myself number 1, but clearly that's the case. Obviously, I know Garrett is undefeated as well. I do have more points scored than him on the season. So, I mean, if you're going to put one, that'd be kind of the differentiating factor there. At some point, we'll play each other, and somebody will eventually get a loss if nobody else can beat us. But we'll see. It's fantasy, injuries, trades, anything can happen. So best of luck to everybody, and see you next time.